This is a very important message for you today. Do not ignore it. Pay attention to this message. There is a moment that comes when the past begins to breathe again, not to haunt you, not to hurt you, but to reveal something you weren't ready to see before. And that moment is now. Because someone's energy has started circling back to your life. Not by mistake. Not by confusion. But by divine permission. You may have felt it already, in the silence, in your dreams, in a memory that randomly visited you while you were doing nothing. That's how the soul speaks. Softly. Quietly. Without warning. And now, heaven is saying, yes, they are returning. But the reason is not what you think. This is not about romance. This is not even about closure. This is about completion. A sacred loop that your soul began a long time ago. A conversation that was never finished. A truth that was left floating in between years. A name you stopped saying, but never really erased. And now, the divine clock has struck a new hour, one where what was buried must come back, not to harm you, but to heal something inside you. You're not imagining it. The thoughts. The flashbacks. The sudden moments where your heart trembles without explanation. That person, whoever they are in your life, they've been thinking of you too. They've spoken your name in rooms of silence. Their heart has been stirred without even knowing why. Because heaven has been gently preparing them to come back, not as they were, but as they need to be. Not to complete you, but to complete the echo of a promise that was never given words. And still, this return is not about them. It's about you. It's about the version of you that finally gets to witness the truth without needing to be right. It's about the peace you will feel when you realize you no longer need answers to feel whole. You have changed. You have grown. And now, what is returning is not a person, it is a mirror. A reflection of who you were, and the soft closure of who you've become. But don't mistake this for unfinished love. Sometimes, souls return not to stay, but to remind you of the light you carry. Sometimes, people come back not to rebuild, but to reveal how far you've come. And the angels want you to know, this return is sacred. It is written. It is soft. There is no fight in it. There is no confusion in it. There is only clarity. And your role in this moment is not to protect yourself, it is to observe. To listen. To feel. And to let your soul decide what remains, and what was never meant to. You've already walked through too many storms to be afraid now. You don't need to guard yourself against what's coming. Because what's returning has already been filtered through grace. Heaven will not allow what hurt you to return and repeat. This time, it's not a test. It's a release. A soft unraveling of tension that your spirit was holding for far too long. This person may not even realize what their return means. They may reach out casually, gently, unexpectedly. A message. A familiar name. A feeling you thought was long gone. But behind it, something sacred is unfolding. Behind it, your angels are aligning a lesson that is not painful, but peaceful. Because the reason for their return is not for them to be understood. It's for you to feel understood without even asking. And that is what healing looks like now. That is what divine completion feels like. There are moments when life pauses, not because things are broken, but because something is returning to be gently completed. That's what this season feels like. A quiet returning. A sacred loop coming full circle. Not with noise, not with drama, but with silence that holds 1,000 unspoken truths. The person who once held a chapter in your heart is coming back. But this time, not to pick up where things left off. This time, they're coming back because your spirit is finally ready to be seen in its wholeness. You may feel it in ways you can't explain. That subtle shift in your chest. That random thought. That dream where their presence visited without reason. That sudden softness that wraps around your heart, like a memory returning not to haunt you, but to bow before the version of you that no longer lives in confusion. The angels are orchestrating this not as a love story, but as a love awakening. This isn't about romance. This is about resonance. What they are carrying back into your life isn't a promise. It's a mirror. They've been walking through their own inner changes, their own silent reckonings. They may not say it clearly, but their spirit carries a whisper, "I didn't understand before. But I see you now." And even if they don't have the words, even if they don't speak with the same clarity you've grown into, their return has a vibration. And your soul will recognize it. Not everything that returns is meant to stay. Some things come back just to bless you with the wisdom of how far you've come. But this return is not random. The divine does not send repetition, it sends revelation. There's something you were meant to hear, to feel, to finally allow. Maybe an apology that never needed words. Maybe a truth that couldn't have been spoken until now. Maybe just the sound of their voice reminding you of how soft your heart has become without them. And yet, this is your story now. Not theirs. This is your rhythm. Not their rescue. You are not the same person they once knew. And that's the beauty of this moment. You're not meeting them from a place of longing. You're meeting them from a place of fullness. You're not waiting to be chosen, you've already chosen yourself. And that self is radiant. That self is ready. That self doesn't need validation, it offers presence. So what happens when they return is not something you need to plan. Don't prepare a speech. Don't rehearse your walls. Don't tighten your heart. Just let it unfold. Let your soul be the one to respond. Because your soul knows when something is meant for healing. It knows when silence has been broken by love. And even if they leave again, even if this moment is only meant to pass through, it will still leave you lighter. Not because they fixed anything, but because the divine gave you a chance to finally see yourself, reflected in someone who once misunderstood your light. This return is your sacred reward. Not in material form, but in emotional clarity, in spiritual balance, in that deep knowing that says, I'm not broken. I'm not hard. I'm just ready to live with my heart open again. And that, beloved, is the whole reason. Not for a person to change, but for you to see, you already have. There is a certain kind of return that doesn't come to open old wounds, but to offer gentle closure with sacred eyes. This isn't about reliving what was lost, it's about recognizing what was never truly gone. Their footsteps may echo through your past, but their presence now isn't about rewinding. It's about awakening. And the angels want you to understand something only the Spirit can truly grasp. This moment isn't meant to fix you. It's meant to reflect how far you've already healed. So if your heart is feeling something quiet right now, not fear, not confusion, just a quiet awareness, trust that. That's not imagination. That's confirmation. Their energy is getting closer. But not to restart the story. To acknowledge the growth. To honor the invisible bond that time never broke, it just softened. They've seen things. Maybe not about you. Maybe not even with words. But life has walked them through their own shadows. And in those silent hours, in those sacred midnights, something in their soul remembered your name. Not just your face. Not just your kindness. But the feeling of you. The energy that was never loud, never forceful, just honest. And it stayed with them. It didn't vanish. It became a compass. And now they've followed it back. But not to claim you. Just to witness you. Because you don't need claiming anymore. You don't need to be rescued. The version of you who once waited for answers, has already stepped into peace. The you who cried for closure now lives in wholeness. And this return? It's not here to reawaken pain. It's here to acknowledge that you were never the one who broke anything, you were the one who carried the grace through the silence. So let them return. Let the message come. Let the unexpected meeting happen. But let it unfold without urgency. Without control. You are not the same soul who once needed explanation. You are the version who simply smiles, not because it all made sense, but because you're finally okay without needing it to. This return is holy. Not because it brings something new, but because it reveals what has been quietly living inside you all along: forgiveness, softness, strength, stillness. That's the real treasure. Not the person. Not the moment. But the version of yourself that is no longer at war with the past. And maybe, just maybe, this person needs to feel your peace. Not for you to teach them. Not for you to fix them. But for them to know what true love sounds like: love that doesn't scream, love that doesn't chase, love that just stands still and shines. And after they come and speak, after you look them in the eye and hear the tremble in their voice, you'll realize, this wasn't about getting anything back. This was about finally seeing yourself from the outside. About realizing that your heart didn't break, it bloomed. In silence. In waiting. In surrender. And now it stands whole, ready, and wildly peaceful. So let them return. And let yourself remain. You don't have to move toward them. You don't have to relive anything. You just have to be present. Because this return isn't here to bring love back, it's here to prove that love never really left. Not every return is meant to shake your world. Sometimes, it arrives just to gently remind you that you've already rebuilt it. And in that stillness, something powerful happens: a meeting between two souls, one carrying the past, the other carrying peace. You may have waited for this for years without even knowing. But now that it's here, you don't feel fireworks, you feel quiet. Sacred. Settled. And that's how you know, healing has already happened before the reunion ever did. They may come with eyes that search your face for memories. With a voice that feels too familiar to ignore. But what they're really bringing isn't a conversation. It's a vibration. A soft wave of what could have been, flowing into what is. And they might not have the words. They may fumble, hesitate, glance down when speaking. But don't look for perfection in their speech, look for the humility in their energy. Because this return is not about saying everything right. It's about feeling what was never spoken. And when you stand in front of them, even if it's just for a few minutes, you'll notice something strange and beautiful. That ache you thought would rise again? It doesn't. That fear you thought would crack your calm? It stays still. Because this time, your soul isn't reacting, it's responding. From a place of fullness. From a place of sovereignty. From a place that knows, I can receive this moment and still protect my peace. You've become the soft space they never knew how to handle before. But now, even if they still don't fully understand it, they feel it. They feel the difference in you. They feel the safety. The grace. The silence that no longer demands explanation. And maybe that's why they came back, not for reconciliation, but for revelation. To witness someone they once overlooked now standing in quiet, holy confidence. And even if no promises are made, no futures are discussed, no apologies offered, it will still matter. Because you won't need anything from them to validate your healing. You'll feel it in how easy it is to breathe, in how calm your heart remains, in how you can smile without expectation, listen without leaning, and speak without needing to convince them of your worth. This moment isn't about answers. It's about atmosphere. It's about seeing the past walk toward you and realizing, you don't have to go back with it. You can stay here. In this now. In this you. In this space where love no longer means losing yourself. And when they leave, because maybe they will, it won't feel like loss. It will feel like honor. Like sacred closure handed to you not in words, but in presence. In energy. In the divine stillness that says, you did it. You loved fully. You let go gently. You healed honestly. And now, you're free. That's the reason they came back. Not to reignite the fire, but to see the light you built after it burned out. There comes a moment when the story no longer needs an ending, because your soul has already found its peace in the middle. And when that person, that presence, that once familiar heartbeat reappears before you, you realize something quiet but true: they were never the destination, they were the reflection. What you once thought was love returning, was actually your own healing taking form, standing in front of you, asking for nothing but stillness. They may look at you with softened eyes, maybe even regret, maybe even awe. But you don't need their recognition anymore. Because your value was never hidden in their hands, it was always blooming in your own chest. And when you see them now, you feel it not as a wound, but as a wave of clarity. You don't need to say much. You don't need to ask anything. Because what needed to be known has already unfolded in silence. And your silence? It speaks louder than any memory ever could. This moment is not about getting back. It's about looking back, and not needing to hold on. It's about realizing that what once felt like loss, was actually space being made, for something softer, truer, freer. And now, you are standing in that space, breathing fully, loving gently, and glowing with the kind of light that doesn't need to be understood, just witnessed. Maybe they'll ask how you are. Maybe they'll smile like nothing ever changed. But you'll know. You'll feel the shift in your bones. The peace that once felt impossible now lives in your very breath. And as you speak, if you even speak, you'll notice the strength in your voice. Not loud. Not sharp. Just calm. Unmoved. Holy. Because you've stopped waiting for someone to bring you wholeness. You've stopped expecting answers from mouths that were never designed to hold your truth. And now, you are living in the rhythm of grace. A rhythm that says, not everything that returns is meant to be held. Some things are meant to be released again, but this time, with love. They might linger. They might remember. But whether they stay or leave again won't change anything anymore. Because this time, their return wasn't about what they bring. It was about what you've become. And you, beloved, have become a sanctuary, for yourself, for your own soul, for your own soft becoming. This is not the chapter where you open the door and let the past in again. This is the chapter where you smile from the doorway and bless it as it passes through. And when you turn around and walk back into your sacred space, your sacred peace, your sacred knowing, you'll feel it. That weight is gone. That waiting is over. That story is done. Not with bitterness, but with breath. Not with anger, but with alignment. You didn't need them to come back to heal. But their return showed you just how far you've already traveled without them. And that, right there, that's the real reason they came. Not to stay, but to remind you of the freedom you already live in now. You're not who you used to be. Not even close. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing about this entire journey. The one who waited, who cried, who wondered if love would ever return, is no longer here. In their place now lives someone sacred. Someone free. Someone who no longer needs closure to feel complete. Someone who no longer seeks answers to feel secure. Someone who knows now that when love is real, it doesn't have to stay to be true. And so if someone has come back to your life, know this: their return is not the beginning of something new. It is the recognition of what has already healed. They are not here to fix you. They are here to witness you. They are not the light. You are. And their presence? It only reveals how bright you've been shining in their absence. You don't owe them pain. You don't owe them explanation. You don't owe them your silence or your surrender. You owe yourself only one thing: to remain in the peace you've cultivated in their absence. Because that peace, that sacred, quiet, holy peace, is the true treasure. It was never about getting someone back. It was about getting yourself back. Maybe they'll stay. Maybe they'll go. But either way, you will remain whole, soft, strong. You've become your own answer, your own reassurance, your own warm place to land. And that, beloved, is what heaven wanted all along. Not a reunion, a revelation. Not a restart, a recognition. You are not who you were when they left. And they are not returning to take you somewhere new. They are returning because your presence is healing, even for those who once couldn't hold it. Let that be enough. Let your peace be loud. Let your calm be radiant. Let your soft smile say everything that words never could. You've made it. Not because someone came back, but because even when they didn't, you kept loving, you kept growing, you kept shining. This is your miracle. This is your reward. Not in form of a person, but in the return of your own peace. You are free now. You are home now. And no one, no return, no absence, no past, can take that from you again. So close your eyes. Take a breath. And whisper to your own heart, "Thank you for waiting. Thank you for holding me. Thank you for returning, not to them, but to me." Dear heart, you've waited long enough. Not for someone else, but for this peace, this quiet freedom, this moment where your soul doesn't tremble anymore when you remember what used to be. And maybe you never got the words you needed. Maybe the apology never came. Maybe they didn't understand. But none of that matters now. Because today, you've become someone who no longer needs the world to understand in order to breathe freely. The return of a person will never mean as much as the return of your own self-worth. That is what came back to you. Your glow. Your clarity. Your ability to hear your own voice again without fear. And isn't that the real miracle? You kept walking when it hurt. You kept loving when it was hard. You kept healing even when no one clapped for you. And now, the light you carry, it's not borrowed. It's not dependent. It's yours. Maybe someone showed up again. Maybe they told you what you waited to hear for years. Or maybe they just appeared silently, unsure, unhealed. But whatever their reason, you knew this time, you don't belong in spaces that once made you question your own light. You belong in places that match your frequency, not drain your spirit. You belong where your silence is honored. Where your softness is not weakness but wisdom. Where you don't have to perform to be loved. And this part of your journey isn't about choosing them or not. It's about remembering that you already chose you. So breathe. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your heart beat, slow, calm, proud. You've come too far to go back now. Not to people. Not to patterns. Not to pieces of yourself that no longer fit the sacred space you've grown into. And if the past returns again, as it often does, smile gently. Not because you're tempted, but because you're at peace. This was never about reunion. It was about recognition of how sacred you've become, of how whole you already are.